Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us here today. We've got a very interesting webinar for you in store today. And we're going to be talking about data democratization and data monetization strategies. In today's digital times, it's obviously critical to monetize all the data that we have and obviously attribute it where necessary and required. So we are also going to be talking about control and what are the necessary drivers that will enable us to monetize the data that we have and benefit the entire ecosystem. And then we'll obviously talk a little bit about why smart contracts for this solution, and we'll get into a demo as well to show you how this is done. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce my panelists for today. First off, Zohar Hod. He's the CEO and founder of One Creation. Zohar, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining today. My name is Zohar Hod, and I'm the founder of One Creation. I'm also excited to be here with my ex-colleagues. So I have some background at Digital Asset and spent about a year there, but also spent a long time dealing with data and basically ran sales for ICE Data Services, which is one of the large data providers.
Thank you so much, Zohar. And now I'd like to introduce Kelly Mathieson. She's the head of client experience at Digital Asset. Kelly?
Hello, hello everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. As Manish has mentioned, Kelly Mathieson. I lead the client experience team here at DA and have a background in capital markets where I was challenged with the ability to manage data effectively, and you only could wish to have the chance to monetize it. So I'm looking forward to having this dialogue with all of you today.
Perfect. And obviously, this is Manish Grover. Today I'm going to be moderating and managing the logistics for today's session. Just a couple of logistical items. If you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A panel or in the chat panel. We'd definitely like to keep this interactive. And of course, I'll be recording the session, so you'll have the recording in your inbox within the next 24 to 48 hours. With that, Zohar, why don't you kick us off by talking about some of the challenges today?
Sure. Thank you, Manish. So basically, when we started this this endeavor, we were observing two major trends in the industry. The first one is, of course, this big number of data. And when we say there's, proliferation of data, there's many different causes for the proliferation of data. First of all, IoT and new sensors and new ability to collect data, but also the ability of us acting in the digital world. And now we generate a lot of data, whether us is individuals or enterprises, we generate a massive amount of data. And the question around it was, what are the tools available? So if I'm an organization that has business insights rather than just any type of data, what are the technological steps that I need to take in order to make sure that that data can get monetized? That's the one first trend. We're sitting on a lot of data, and therefore we have a need to monetize that data. However, data monetization is not that easy. It's not like starting a Shopify, a store on Shopify where everything is already set up for you, and you're connected to the Amazons and the Facebooks of the world for advertising, invoicing, and all that stuff. So what is the problem with data? Well, the second trend that I wanted to talk about, except from the proliferation of data and the lack of ability to monetize it, is the lack of control. The fact that we're losing control means that we cannot monetize our data. And control for One Creation is really in those three major columns that you see, problems that you see today. Number one, our data is being abused. There are so many different examples for that, but if lately you've just followed Netflix and the social dilemma and those type of things, you might have seen how terrible is the abuse of our data. So one thing we want to prevent in terms of control is less abuse of our data. Second, in order to control where your data and what to do with your data, you need to know where your data is. So can we put some sort of a GPS on the data and be able to track our data, even though it went beyond the first stop of who we approved the data to go to? So if I send some data to Kelly and Manish, I wanted to make sure that Kelly, not maliciously, but even unintentionally, doesn't forward this data onwards to individuals or enterprises that I don't wish to share the data. So the third part of it is everything around privacy. You know, there's been a lot of passing of regulations in Europe around GDPR and the ability to be able to give consent to use your data, or the ability to take away your data and not be able to use your data by any type of organization. We believe that in the next year or so, there will be a big push towards a privacy bill of rights in the United States. We've already seen that in California by the CCPA passing. And that means that what we do foresee is that regulators, and not just the regulators, also users, will be able to move their data, same way that we move our data today, or we move our phone number today between one vendor and another. We should have the ability to move our data as well. So those are the main control issues, and what we've decided, and together with the trend on monetization, we decided to build a platform around that. The platform basically has to do a couple of things. As we said, and as even our tagline says in our logo, monetization through control. I just mentioned those three areas of control, but I wanted to tell you that without that control, monetization at scale is really difficult. So what do we mean when we say, you know, tracking our data? These are the questions that we wanted to ask. First of all, there's the level of, can we access the data at all? The data could be at a file, or it is a feed. The data could be an image or an Excel sheet, any type of data that you can think of. So how do we provide the mechanism to provide secure access control to that data? There are many different tools out there. We've incorporated several of them into our platform, and you will see that soon. The second piece is, once I've given access to the actual data, how can I provision it in a real-time manner, and I can provision it in scale? Meaning, I don't want to be managing long lists of IPs and long lists of entitlements and all of those difficult things that currently happen when you want to monetize data. So we needed to have a mechanism that automatically provisions data, and in a granular manner on top of the access control capabilities. So then we can answer the questions of who's using our data, you know, where are they using the data, and why are they using the data. We can even add an additional feature of time. When can they be using my data? That's also important. And then we said if we wanted to share data at scale, we needed a lot more automation, which was around the workflow onboarding. And that's where we really, in order to connect all of these dots together, that's why we decided to use the digital asset Daml smart contracts framework in order to build this platform. So,
and Zohar, could
yeah.
I add one point on this, if I could? Sorry, not to break your rhythm, but the reason I think it's so important what you're saying here in terms of how you and your organization are thinking about, first around access and control, usage and control, and then the workflow that allows data to move within those policies and rules before you even get to the opportunity to monetize and mobilize. It's so critical. As I said at the beginning, my background is a bit more in the capital markets space, and for any number of years, there have always been initiatives across the industry that are focused on an attempt to take the data that is resident in large institutions in different service or agency or product businesses and give it value to get additional revenue opportunities out of that, but also equally importantly to what you're saying here, reduce the cost of managing that data. Certainly in the post-2008 environment where the regulatory implications are at unprecedented levels from any other time experienced in the capital markets or financial services more broadly industry, the cost of most businesses to maintain individual control and access to that data just as it is, separate and segregated, is monumental compared to what it had previously been. So the approach you're talking about here not only gives the opportunity to liberate that data in the form of opportunities to create new revenue and to have it mobilized and shared under specific and conditional terms, but it's likely also going to importantly reduce the operating costs of creating, maintaining, and storing that data simply for the BAU operations. So I think it's actually not a dual-edged sword, the more positive version of that. It's a dual-edged opportunity by the structure and the approach you're creating here. And in my time at DA, I would say that's not just simply for financial services and capital markets where it's obvious, but I think it's equally obvious as you expand and think about data that is moving through healthcare value chains, through supply chains, through food and beverage. Frankly, the concept of monetization, control, and mobilization is unlimited across industries.
Right. Thank you, Kelly. We consider ourselves champions of digital rights, and that's why we really wanted to bring back control to the creator of the data. Hence the name One Creation, because there can only be one creation. And this is applicable, as you mentioned, to so many different industries, including music rights, including different types of environments, as medical, as you mentioned, where the ownership of the data becomes really important, but we want to control the data as well. And that's also true for situations where we want to share sensitive data. And that's another issue, both in capital markets and in all the other industries. How do we create an environment where we can share data in a scalable manner and still allow controls to be automatically executed? And that's really where we wanted to be able to have that, the use of smart contracts. So maybe the next slide will give us a little bit of an understanding what those smart contracts actually provide to us. Now, for those of you,
Zohar,
yeah.
a quick question. Sorry, something popped up in the chat. The question is about the framework that you outlined here is great. This one, but does it apply to B2B or is it extendable to B2C as well?
It is definitely extendable to B2C. That was always the intent. However, we're going after the B2B market first because the customer acquisition costs on the B2C market is a little bit higher. But yes, absolutely. We have certain clients, and you'll see it as part of the demo as well, that decided that they want to use this platform in order to give their own clients the ability to track their data as they use their data. So a bank would give a client, or a credit card would give a client the ability to track and control their data even as they use their data. So therefore the client theoretically could set a rule for that particular institutions to say, I don't want you to share my data with third-party advertisers. And the answer is the system will enforce that, even though you are a client of that particular enterprise.
Perfect. And I think you touched upon this briefly, but the second related question to that is, which industries are you looking at? Is it financial services specific, or are you looking broadly? And what are some of the example scenarios that you could give to clarify this?
Right. For the example scenarios, you'll have to wait for the demo. So stay tuned. Okay. In terms of the other industries, yes, of course, we started in both financial and in healthcare. However, we do see applications in this in other industries, e-commerce, social media, many different industries that basically collect business insights. So yes, this is applicable to any type of data, whether it's feed, file, image, any type of data, and any type of industry. Okay, what we are is a digital rights management platform, allows you to provision and track and monetize your data, and therefore we do not intend on being specific to one industry. However, that said, given my background and the people that are involved in the company, we did decide to first approach the financial services and healthcare with a focus on financial services. So some of the use cases that you will see here will be mostly focused on financial services, although I'll show you a healthcare use case as well. Okay, so to go back to why we use specifically Daml. So one thing that we really wanted to achieve is automation. And we wanted to achieve automation in a decentralized manner, meaning can we have a network of network as we assume that the data will flow between one person to another institution and possibly to other networks. How can we manage access to data, provisioning of data in scale when this is a decentralized system that might flow between one network, one aptitude, and another. So we really wanted to use these smart contracts in order to automate our workflow. However, Daml specifically has unique traits that were even more applicable and more appealing to us here. Number one, it's open sourced. We love it. Number two, the Daml contracts allow you to do something called Subtransaction Privacy. What does that mean? It means that we could take a data object, let's assume an Excel, and we could say that Kelly and Zohar can see one point in that Excel, literally to the cell level, or a whole column on an Excel, and then Manish and Sophia would be able to see a different part of that same Excel. The way that the contracts work is that you have one object in the middle, and then the contracts allow or disallow, specific access to that data at scale and in an automated manner. So one of the greatest things about the platform as well, that's the smart contracts capabilities, is that sub-transaction privacy. The second thing is onboarding. If we wanted to onboard at scale, imagine how much money the vendors are using on onboarding. Lawyers, contracts, whitelisting of all of that, in my opinion, is not the way to do it in an automated way. And therefore, the smart contracts automate the onboarding of individuals and the provisioning of data to those individuals or to those enterprises. And finally, one thing that was really cool about Daml is the ability for that smart contract language to be placed on centralized databases. And here we wanted to make a cognizant decision to place our platform on a standardized AWS cloud environment. That doesn't mean that we cannot place our solution on a distributed ledger. However, given the fact that we are dealing with sensitive data, that data usually does not get distributed. So the first use case meant sense for us to put it on a centralized database. However, Daml has the unique feature that you can port this platform very easily from the existing persistence environment that we've set it up to a distributed ledger as well. So we can do both those type of installations. And given the fact that we've built it on Terraform as well, it means that the platform could be installed both on-premise and in the cloud. Of course, we prefer in the cloud, but we've built it in that modular manner.
And Zohar, if I could just add to a couple of the fantastic points you've made on this page, just again, drawing a little bit from the prior experience and experience we see now as entities across industries are attempting to tackle the challenge that you've addressed here. But just to reinforce some of what you said, sub-transaction privacy is critical. So many industry initiatives or single company initiatives in the past have been hindered by the fact or the limitation that the data has to be exposed to everyone who's attempting to share it for all time and all components of it. What you're leveraging here in using Daml and what you've built into the solution you're about to show is important in that it's different, in that the data and the workflows that are defined that control that data can establish very specific variable permissions, such that it can be to only a component of transactional data, only for a moment or time, or only for a purpose of making a choice or executing a right over an element of a transaction. But it is not sort of a one size fits all to the massive amounts of data that most organizations are sitting on. And when you think of financial services in particular, where data is generally held by large agency services, custodial agents, clearing agents, issue and paying agents, loan agents, collateral management agents, security lending agents, none of them are able to utilize that data, not only for their own benefit, for the benefit of their clients, to be able to make more informed decisions. And that ties very closely to the points that you've made about privacy and lineage and auditable trust, in that if you go back to my point about the ever increasing regulatory environment, with what you are building here and addressing here, you can contemplate real world scenarios of regulators, auditors, other compliance and control related officers in an organization now having real-time viewable access to the data. They can't act on it. That's not what they're permissioned to do, but real-time viewable access into that data as the transactions are happening. And again, it goes back to beginning to reduce, if not eliminate, the burden on organizations to produce that data after the fact and compile it to give to regulators. Now it becomes more of a real-time audit governance process as a consequence of the way you're marrying Daml together with your workflow and functionality solution.
Exactly. Exactly, and this is the secret sauce, right? The ability to combine these technologies, both smart contracts, digital rights management, and access control mechanism. If you put all these tools together, you've got the platform that you're going to see shortly. I heard that there are some other questions around persistence and what we used in AWS. I want to just hit that very shortly. I don't know if it's okay with you, Manisha. Saw a question on the,
Yeah, it's about which data store are you using. If you're more comfortable, we can cover that during the demo if you like.
It's fine. Just to answer that question very quickly, our platform, if you wanted a quick analogy, is almost like a toll booth on the way to the highway. All right, so it's a digital rights management platform, and therefore we provide both an environment on our own that you can distribute the data through our own environment. And therefore, the way that our architecture is currently placed is that the Daml component sits on an AWS Aurora. However, the data is completely separated from the Daml component and sits on regular, databases. It's got an S3 bucket for the files and an infrastructure for feeds as well. However, many large clients, especially our large first clients, would require that the data never leaves their environment. We have an implementation architecture where this can connect to your data store, your data lake, still provide the same permissioning and digital rights capabilities. However, we're pointing to your data lake rather than you're using our own environment for distribution. So I hope that answered that question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Zohar. Just one quick thing that came out in your, the fact that your platform is giving the ability to track and giving an organization the ability to track and monetize, does it mean that it also allows folks who are providing the data to that organization to also be able to monetize it?
Absolutely. Now, it depends on the organization that is inviting those entities to send the data, whether they want to be or allowed to be charged for that data. But yes, we give you the tools to be able to also give the clients or constituents that are feeding data into your environment the ability to monetize their data. We believe that if you're an aggregator or a company that sits at the nexus of multiple different data feeds, it would be best if you allow your constituents to track what you're doing with their data. We think it creates better ecosystems and will probably give them much more comfort level to continue contributing their data to you if they feel that they can control and track what you do with their data.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, so I think we could move to the platform and the demo.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me just share my screen.
Or maybe you can I have your architecture up if you just want to quickly touch upon that.
Yeah, I mean this is what I meant before.
Okay.
That's the answer to the question before. Whether you're required to keep the data on our platform or not, the answer is not, unless you really want to, right? So you could do either. That's the answer.
Okay, awesome. And
yeah. Therefore, just before we started, who's this platform good for? And how can we help you? If you're sitting on a lot of business insights and you're interested in monetization of those business insights, you're the right candidate for us. If you are trying to protect data that is sensitive to you, yet you want to share it with others and want to then allow for some monetization or just share and track the data and who's using it and set rules, you're the right client for us. If you're worried about data leakage, which is almost any type of data vendor that's currently selling data, gets data leakage just by, mistakes, forwarding the data, malicious type of activities, you would love this platform as well. And of course, if you're an individual that like to protect your data and you care about your data, and when you interact with others and you share your data, you would also like this platform, because you will be able to track your data and be able to set controls over your data. So we would love you to call your current platforms and tell them that you're interested in them applying this technology, so you can gain control over your data. All right, I think we're ready for some demo. So
yeah, I'm going to stop sharing and you can start sharing, Zohar.
Okay. So for those that asked the question whether this could be used by an individual or an enterprise, the answer is yes. However, we are starting with enterprises. So when we onboard our first enterprise, we send them an email with a super user that then is supposed to register the organization on their behalf and start inviting the organization internally. So the first thing that you need to do is register to the platform. Depending on when you're, which geography you're entering or logging into the platform, you will need to sign a privacy notice. In this case, I'm from the United States, so I'm signing a CCPA or a California privacy notice. If you were from Europe, you would sign GDPR privacy notices and so forth. When I registered the account, there's a couple of other things that I need to do. I need to be able to pass a couple of know your customers of other onboarding processes. This is used for both the authentication of who you are as a party, but also who you are as a company or an organization. So we will send you an email with a token and basically tell you to sign up, making sure that you really work for the organization you say you do. And additionally, we would ask you to identify yourself as a participant type. We'd like you to be as granular, not just an insurance company, but maybe a market data department at a exchange, or a research department at a hospital, and so forth and so on. So once you do that, we identify that using a search, a LexisNexis search, make sure that you really work for that type of organization. And now we know what type of organization you work for, who you are. We've authenticated you as a party, and now we could start setting up the platform. The first thing that we need to do is to go and set up your internal departments in your organizations. These are other departments in the organizations that you intend on allowing on posting business insights or data and giving them certain rights to post. Of course, you could set your own rules in terms of approval processes, rights to edit, and so forth. So you will set those internal departments. You will then set the rules related to those departments. Who's the reviewer? Who's the admin? Who can edit, and so forth. We would ask you to also enter your financial information. The reason is, as a platform, we don't see the data, but we do see that somebody subscribed to your data. And as soon as they subscribe, we issue an invoice on your behalf, and therefore we manage the collection of your invoices, but it has to go to your account. We don't touch any of the money involved. Once I've set up the departments, I now need to invite internal users. I can either invite them one by one, or I can upload them one as bulk. And then I also have a section here which gives me the dashboard of my invoices. These are all invoices that were issued on my behalf, and I can manage the dashboard here. Yes, the invoices do take care of your local jurisdiction taxes and all those good things. So now I've set up the account and I'm a registered user. The system basically has three main components to it. The first one is a marketplace. The marketplace could either be left like this, and you could post your data right next to others, or you can actually white label the marketplace. Once you do that, you can have multiple different apps for different types of data sets, depending on your requirements. The marketplace has two types of workflows in it. First, there's a situation where an organization wants to post a certain data set. In this case, it's a real estate research report. These are all just examples. Or an organization like a bank wants to post a feed. Those are called publishing workflows because I'm the owner of the data and therefore I'm allowed to publish and set controls on my data. The second part or the second workflow here is when you're not the real owner of the data, but you're trying to create a composite of data sets. Similarly to this exchange that's trying to create a corporate actions composite. However, they are collecting those corporate actions from the listing companies on those exchanges. Or in the case here in the healthcare case where Harvard wanted to do a COVID track and trace, participants such as Adam or myself in this case participated in the COVID test. However, we could set rules and requirements of how Harvard can potentially use our data or not use our data after they collated all of those 3,000 results and sold that to pharmaceuticals and other insurance companies. So the point is you could either be a publisher or an aggregator or both. And I'll show you those two workflows in a second. The second piece of the platform is, or the second component of the platform is where you store your data. And we've had that conversation just a few minutes ago. The data could either be provided for us through an API or through a manual upload. And then you could use our platform for the distribution and monetization of your data. Or you can actually point to your data lake, and we will do that through connection to your API, and then allow your data to remain on your platform. The data in the vault itself basically includes whatever you decide to upload to the data vault. In this case, this is my data vault where I decided to upload some health information, my medical status, my locations, my primary health information, such as my heart rate, my Apple Watch information, or preconditions, or even just my location. This is just an example. I'll show you other examples. For example, in a feed situation, here's a feed that is going to several different venues, in this case, different exchanges that the feed is posting data, and we can provision this type of data on the fly. The only thing that I want you to care about here is you probably see these numbers and you're wondering, what is this number? As soon as we find out what the metadata is, we ask you to identify the hierarchy, meaning what is the parent-child relationship? In an Excel, you could do that through a filter, but here we basically ask you to identify this through those numbers that we allow you to say, this is the parent, this is the child. The reason is the smart contracts that we use can allow you then to use that subtransaction privacy. And although you're running a feed here, only provide access to a very limited amount of the feed to certain types of clients. And that's really a very powerful capability. It's same as I mentioned in my previous analogy. It's almost like a toll booth on the highway. And you're said, okay, Kelly, you can only, given your rules and who you are and your participant type, you can only go in lane 4 and exit in exit 15. That's type of provisioning that the smart contracts allow us to do. So let's talk about this third piece, which is the subscription. How do we actually track our data? So what we've done is we've decided to apply multiple different levels of encryption. Encryption together with the smart contracts, that these are, let's say, sophisticated encryptions. What's sophisticated about them? They are basically trying to figure out whether the owner of the data is really close to the file, is the real owner of the file or the data object. As soon as the data object becomes far away for certain parameters, we call it proximity encryption. But what happens is we figured out that the data is not sitting with its rightful owner, and then we request or re-encrypt the data and make sure that the second level owner cannot open the data unless he comes back and registers on this account, on this platform. So let me go through a couple of these processes and show you some of the use cases. First of all, as soon as I click on, I want to subscribe, in this case, this is client portal. So let's say there's a good chance I will not be able to subscribe to the client's portal, but if I did subscribe, an immediate invoice gets generated, and that's where the invoices that we discussed with you before. But if I wanted to start and post some data from scratch. So let's actually take a couple of different use cases, and let's start from some financial data. So if I took, for instance, a corporate actions that I wanted to post, in this case, I will mimic workflow that I'm not just a publisher, I'm actually collecting data, and that answers the question around whether you allow your clients to also track the data. So I wanted to show you the more complex type of workflow. In this case, it would be an exchange, and I'm either a publisher of the data or I'm an aggregator. Because the exchange is collecting data from its constituents listing companies, they are an aggregator. And when they set that up, they can decide, as you can see, this is the price for the outside people that are buying the composite. However, this is the scale where we allow our constituents, in this case, the listing companies, to charge us for that same service. And in this case, the exchange decided to allow the clients to charge. You could set certain chat systems that are available as an API to the platform where the people can call you for any challenges on the data. And of course, you can set the reviewer and so forth. What's important is we incorporated 3 different mechanisms for access control. These are third-party services, but they are very sophisticated algorithms for masking data, distorting data, homomorphically masking, and this is any kind of data. Data in transit, data that it's a file, or data that is a feed. Using these 3 mechanisms, and we are, we're not particular to any one. We think everyone works well, but we also think that each one of them works differently in terms of your workflow, whether the file would leave the platform or the data would remain on the platform. If the data remains on the platform, you could do some really cool stuff in terms of allowing subscriptions to existing data, and then allowing algorithms such as risk algorithms, any type of models to be able to test that data. So new opportunities for you to mask data and provide services around data. We provide you with just what we think are the top 3 tools to mask that data. Once you have that set up, you can upload your own legal documents to the platform. That means that the smart contracts will apply this legal contract on you subscribing to this data. No need for any type of signing of contracts or anything like that. Once you've done that, you need to import your data. What are you looking for in terms of what are your requirements to collect from these companies? Remember, we're talking about corporate actions. So we give you a little bit of a guide here. Here's what we're looking from the data. We're basically looking only for the metadata. We don't really need the data in order to provision it. We need to know what the titles are of the data, and then you can provision according to that ontology. So we give you a little guide of what you need to do, and then we ask you to import the data. As you can see, I imported basically NAB, which is National Australian Bank, one of the constituent companies on that exchange, and all of the long list of dividend data and information that they have. I then can set up as easily, set up who are the constituents that can see that data. As you remember, we signed up and we identified ourselves as a participant type, setting the rules and walking away, right? So we can set certain rules, and now basically the data is going to be limited to these brokers and to the banks. And now I've created a brand new app. That's as easy as creating basically an empty app that says, I'm looking for getting contributions from these listing companies. In this case, what will happen, sorry, press the wrong button, is the constituents of the exchange will get an invitation, and then we'll get the ability to contribute their own data into the platform. They will, now you can see they got the invitation. The data is already populated in terms of what the exchange is interested, and you can do this for any type of data. In this case, because the data doesn't reside within the company, it resides in a registry, we allow them to choose the registry. And we do the same thing as setting up the controls, and we're now have 2 applications that feed off of each other. Let's look at what we can do in terms of security. So let's assume that I'm JP Morgan right now, and I have access, I want to get access into MetLife's quantitative research report. These are just examples, so there's no any secret data here, so don't worry about that. However, MetLife's research report, according to their mandate, you're not supposed to see all of the research report because you only own a few floors in the MetLife building. So how do we subscribe to the data? Subscribe to the data, because I was an insurance company and MetLife allowed other insurance companies to see this data. I'm allowed to subscribe. I get an invoice and I could look at the data. Now, this is a research report that is included in Excel. There's a few things we can do. As soon as we try to download this research report, we've generated a key. On the other side, I am, as the subscriber to the data, able to generate the key and open the file. Now we can do a few things. We can actually interact with the file and say, I want to block all the sharing capabilities. I want to stop, save as, or print, or those functions. We interact with the Microsoft or Adobe type of digital rights management APIs. However, let's assume that on a, not a malicious, but I just decide to share this data with my friend Peter at Bloomberg. So I send them to Bloomberg. Peter receives this email and tries to open the file. What happens is that our system identified that, first of all, the file is not near its original owner. That's what we meant when we said proximity. However, now Bloomberg is trying to open the file, and what they'll get is a message to say, whether you're malicious or not malicious, I hope that you really intended to open the file with the license. You're not the rightful owner. Please come back and sign up to the platform or register to the platform. When Adam comes and registers to the platform, what Adam will see is that we sent this corporate actions to JP Morgan. JP Morgan forwarded on to Bloomberg. Bloomberg tried to open the file, without a license, and that's why they're in a red dot. And I could literally look at each one of these dots and see what is the legal license and digital rights management that was given to this particular client. If Bloomberg decided to forward the email to somebody else, it will go on and on and on, and so we can track our data. You could also, of course, track what you subscribe to, and that's managed in our subscription area. So let's do finally just a little bit of a non-financial, for those of you that are non-financial, to show you a little bit of what you can do in the Harvard use case, and then I'll be done and open for questions. Basically, if I chose the medical and as Harvard, I wanted to track and trace, that was the intent of the project. They are an aggregator because they're collecting data from us as the, as the subjects of the data. This remains the same, but here I'm importing the data that I'm asking the participants to send. Again, health data, preconditions, test results, right? Once I've done that, I can ask for contributors to come to the platform, in this case, inviting the 3,000 contributors. So I can add the contributors. I could either take them from the list of participants or the organizations. In this case, I'm just going to type, sorry. What did I do? Sorry. I'm just going to type Adam's name and choose it, and now invite Adam to the marketplace. So as you can see, I've now created the invitation for me as Adam to contribute the data. Similarly, now that I've done that, in my platform, I could do the same thing as Adam and set controls in terms of what I will allow. In this case, this is my medical status, what I will allow Harvard to see from my data. So you can see I uploaded the same amount of data, and now I'm going to add and say basically this. If I'm COVID positive, I only want Harvard and the regulator to see my GPS information. I don't want my social security to be shared, and the smart contracts on the platform will enforce those rules automatically. So with that said, the last piece of the platform, because we're using smart contracts, we can do some really cool things around improvement of data. If people can challenge my data, I can challenge other people's data, and we have allowed you to employ certain algorithms and say, if my doctors think that 500 heartbeat does not make sense, and 70% of them want to correct it to 100 heartbeat, then let the system do that. So you're able to do that because you have all these constituents that are actually privy to your data. So you can challenge their data, or they can challenge your data. That's it. I'm going to stop my sharing right now, and Manish, you could go back to the.
Yeah, that was pretty fascinating.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Zohar, so one quick question came up. Does this take care of, you showed, files and feeds. Does this take care of data sharing in real time as a business process is being executed?
Yes, absolutely. So remember, what the system is an event-based platform. So assuming what it does is make sure that the people that are using the data have real permissions to use the data. So once you've received your permissions, you don't need to receive those permissions again. So the system is basically asking, as to go back to that analogy of the toll booth, is to say, I'm coming into, about to go on a highway, let's say an API of data. Am I allowed to see the API, and what am I allowed to see from the API? So in reality, you don't need real-time constant permissioning to the platform. You only need it when people are asking to see data. So we've tested the system, and you could do, multiple tens of thousands of approvals per second. So the system is definitely scalable to do that, both in real time and on file-based.
Yeah, and Zohar, one other question is, how does the access get controlled within a subscriber's organization?
Well, the file is constantly encrypted, and the stream is constantly encrypted. So I guess the simple explanation is that if the other entity was given permission within the organization to see the data, they can see the data. If they were registered, they will have to be registered. I guess what I'm trying to say,
they have to be users of your platform then, right?
They have to be users of the platform in order to see the data, because everything is encrypted. That's number one. Number two is, what I'm trying to say is, there are always going to be methods of being malicious with data. As you saw that Excel sheet, if I just took my phone and I took a picture of the data, I'm not going to be able to stop you from stealing that data. However, we're making, as to go back to the first three areas of control, we're making it very difficult on anyone to open the file with basically encrypting every little cell that comes into this platform. We don't see the data, we don't generate the keys to the data, and therefore it's your responsibility to do all of that. What this does is allow honest players to remain honest and allow you to deal with all the data leakage that goes to honest players, somebody forwarding to his friend, another forwards it down to another colleague or something like that. But I think that what we're giving here is 10 times, if not 100 times better than what you have right now. But yes, we will not be able to completely prevent malicious players with certain types of methods, especially taking pictures of a screen, to be able to misuse the data. We're working towards that, though.
Yeah, but I think it does provide you a nice way to audit where the data is going. Produce compliance reports and
correct.
Stuff like that.
Some of our clients are actually using it just for auditability. We have a client that's an asset manager that wants to audit the trades that are going to a fund administrator and wants to make sure that the fund administrator does not misuse the data. We have a clearing client that wants to, as Kelly rightfully said, that wants to monetize at least on the analytics of the data of his clients that doesn't belong to him. Can they monetize? Can they give this data? The answer is yes. Using this platform, the constituents of the clearinghouse can control what data the clearinghouse shares or not.
Got it. And Zohar, one other question from a Daml user, apparently, obviously. Each of these people, are there Daml parties in Daml lingo? Are there parties on the ledger?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. But for those of you who are Daml experts, it would be really interesting to ping both the digital asset and our CTO, Jean. We've had a unique infrastructure in terms of what's in the Daml contract. There's a master Daml contract that creates other Daml contracts on the fly. There's a lot of very sophisticated use of Daml here. So for those of you who are interested, I'm sure that we'd be able to do a session to just discuss how we treated Daml. But yes, there's a whole microservice for just parties, and those parties are considered Daml parties in the Daml language.
Perfect. Perfect. So yeah, I think I don't see any other questions at this time. So Zohar, do you want to close by
Yes, sure.
recapping? Yeah.
Sure. So thank you very much for joining. I know that everybody's time is precious. I hope that you found this to be interesting. We are actually so excited about the potential of this platform, not just from an enterprise perspective, but also from social good. We think that it's time to allow the individual and the enterprise to regain control over his data, and we'll be fighting towards that social good as much as we can. And if you want to help us, please join us.
And thank you everyone as well. It's always a wonderful opportunity for us to get to listen to one of our expert users of Daml apply it in a real world way, and a way that is going to benefit not only small change, but transformational change across many industries. And that's certainly what One Creation is setting out to do here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you so much, Zohar.